Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So a few things I've been watching recently brought me to this topic. One of the bits I'll play at the end, which was Sky News talking to John Barnes, an example of how media try to minimise the argument or distract from the bigger picture, which John Barnes doesn't allow the presenter to do. In essence, it's about racism, but the presenter's talking about racism within football, and John Barnes is taking the argument to the bigger scale, saying it was not just football, it's racism, everywhere. And the media tends to do that. It's like with suffering, which is why I was trying to make the film, which hopefully will be released in November, about the suffering that goes on everywhere, all over the world, and we just get little bits of it, and those little bits don't make the effect because they're not showing the whole picture, as it were. They're showing like one jigsaw piece, and of course you're not going to get worried about one missing jigsaw piece, but when you see the whole picture, then you realise, exactly what it is. Well, I don't know whether it's done on purpose or whether it's just journalism. Well, I suppose it's just journalism because they like to do the, whenever you learn journalism, it's about minimising, about making the sentence as short as possible. I guess it's because of human attention span being so little that, if you make it too waffling, then no one's going to read it. It has to be punchy, it has to be breaking news. I mean, everything's breaking news these days. But that's part of what this podcast is about. The other thing I saw was a film called The Courier with Benedict Cumberbatch of Sherlock fame. And it was a really good movie. I never knew about it. It's to do with a Russian spy that it was a Russian who decided to give information to the British and Americans about the Russian missiles in Cuba, and that one gentleman who gave up his life because he was executed in the end. Sorry about the spoiler. He may have helped stop the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is the closest that we're told that we've ever come to launching, or America and Russia launching at each other and sending us into a third world war. So a something of gratitude, I've forgotten the word now, it is owed to this Russian man, and it just goes to show, but the thing is, like, that even in that film it was like all the other Russians were bad except this one man, and I know it wasn't the intention of the movie, it's just because they were showing him and they want to highlight him, so they show, say, all the KGB or the people that that attack him once they find out what he's done and beat him up, and it leaves you with the impression that there's just one good man, one good Russian. And then it made me was thinking about this idea: why do we have these feelings for each other? Why do Americans want to kill Russians? Russians want to kill Americans, Iranians? Whatever dynamic it is. What is the, like, say, British and Germans during the Second World War? What is it that made them? I mean, I know you can talk about Holocaust and invasion of countries, but I mean, some of that wasn't known to the soldiers in 1941 or 42 when they fought. What was it? Was it patriotism, pride? What was it that made one human being kill another human being when essentially they're exactly the same? They have the same capacity to feel, they have the same processes and all that kind of stuff, and cultures just varying, and they all eat, they all dream, they all sleep, they all work, they're all part of the system. What is it that made one human kill another human from a far off country? And it's because when you strip them of everything, that they've learned and everything that makes them up into the system model that we're all programmed in through schooling, through television, through culture, through the name of the country that you're given. That's what makes that individual. So it does beg the question, how much of you is actually you? You listening to this will think yourself individual, and you think yourself, you, and it's uniquely you, and it's you that made you. But when you actually really look at it, how much percentage of it is actually your free thought? How much of it, when you were a baby, you knew nothing, you had nothing. Maybe, some people have the nurture versus nature and DNA and stuff that may have come through, who knows about that, but essentially a baby cries and drinks milk and poos and maybe laughs at a later date. So it has the capacity to feel these things. Not everyone gets the chance to, though. That's another thing that moves me on. I know I'm moving quickly here, because it made me think about, I don't remember whether it was Ambulance or one of the programs I was watching on TV, made me think about the disparity between where you're born and to do with money and family and etc. How we all have the capacity to feel. We all have the capacity to feel pain. We all have the capacity to feel happiness. I think that is intrinsic in each one of us. The pain is a protection mechanism for the body, but I believe we also do have the capacity to enjoy. And yet that's robbed of so many of us. There's people out there, you're not seeing it every day. You see it maybe in these charity videos, or you see it in these charity events, but every day there's some children, and I don't know the percentage of the Earth's population, but there are children out there who are suffering, who are not smiling and happy, or not playing with their toys. They're not having the idea of Christmas or their birthdays getting some nice present to play with. They'll be lucky if they get a meal or a warm blanket to keep them warm in the cold winter months. Those children that are robbed of the capacity of human feeling, of happiness. And it all boils down to the fact that we are all one. We're all the same. We're all human beings. It's just we've evolved into this very selfish, greedy, possessive human being that has decided that the place we've been born upon, and take away religion, society and culture and all that, which tries to bring understanding to these things and maybe molds people into these people. But we've come to the place where we've decided we're going to be a collective of, not our true collective of human beings, but being a collective of a border, of a culture that is just, because these human beings have been separated from other human beings and they've decided to do things differently, cultural beliefs and understandings of things. But if they were all in the same place together, they may have all reached the same understanding. But yeah, those understandings we can fight and kill for, or bits of land that no one's immortal, no one's going to live forever. These bits of land move place at people's hands through generation. People who want to play let's keep this country for these people, not understanding that if you go through history you find that people have moved from across the planet all over the place, and that no one is indigenous. Well, the only indigeneity that is true is that we are human beings, and the place that we found ourselves upon, which most of us call Earth, is ours. I assume we don't even really know whether we are the indigenous population. We could have come from I was watching Voyagers, a Sky Universal film where people, I assume from Earth, travel to a new planet because the Earth is dying, and they're trying to regulate feelings and impulses and things to try and get them there and rebuild. And that also, I think, questioned me of what is us if we take away our impulses and our teachings and things? But And are we truly able not to fight each other? Because when they had their impulses back, they started fighting each other about a girl, about power and control. Is that intrinsic in all of us? Is it impossible for us to be, because it was sort of like the different systems, the idea of anarchy versus order, I guess. Is it impossible for us to, is this system that we live in the only one where we can actually live nicely without killing each other and out, if maybe there's something in between. That's the other thing. They often put order versus anarchy or order versus chaos, but there may be an in between where, is the way that we're governed the only way we can be governed? Is there a better way of doing this so that everyone, maybe we could have a government, but the problem is once you give someone power, that's then a falsehood, because we're all intrinsically the same. But once you give someone a lab coat, once you give someone money, once you give someone a bit of extra power that they lead someone, suddenly they change, and that often ends to be the problem. So yeah, there's a lot of thoughts in there. But yeah, I think what it boils down to is the system that we found ourselves in the only possible way of us all living together? Can we live together undivided with our true feeling of being human being? I know there's a lot of people that I see recently, when you talk about, like me, I talk about this idea of being, we shouldn't call ourselves by the colour of our skin, and we should be human. And I know a lot of people are attacking that idea of like, as if it's trying to get rid of the racist argument. I'm not saying that it obviously exists, and yeah, it'd be nice. Well, maybe it is possible for us to live in these different cultures of black, white, Asian, whatever, and celebrate each other. But I tend to find that once you put someone in a box, you're then dividing the truth, and the truth is that we're all human beings. And if we're using divisive, I don't know whether it is possible. We never seem to be able to do it. Even the division of male versus female seems to be an issue that we're still suffering from. And of course you can't ever get rid of that, because there is a difference between species, male and female, but they're still human beings. And I believe that the brains are exactly the same, and that it's just the only difference why we create difference between men and women is because of the understanding that we teach them, and then we make them into those male and female or identities, as it were. And that's been proven through time. You see, people in the past thought, women couldn't do this job or that job. That was enforced upon them. There was never that. That was not a truth. As you can see now, everyone can do everything. Men and women are exactly the same. It's just they have different purposes. The only real actual different purpose is childbirth, bringing on life. Everything else is exactly the same. Yeah, there may be different strengths, but that's not always true, because you could say men are stronger than women, but that's not true, because if you get the strongest woman and put her against me, she's going to beat me. So that's not true, those kind of statements. So I think what I'm trying to say is we live in a world of illusions, and it's understanding which illusions are true. Well, illusion isn't it? We live in a world of illusions, and the importance is finding those illusions and dispelling them, and then getting to the truths and trying to build from them. And I think we're far off from that with the system that we live within, because I think that system encourages illusions. But how we get to the truth of all living as one human being, all loving and understanding each other and having compassion for each other, and not having greed and envy and possession and all those kinds of things, like in the John Doylepoems song, I don't know how that's possible. So I'll leave you with the John Barnes thing that I thought was interesting, because it just shows how media try to show you that little small thing rather than the big picture. And it's important for people like John Barnes and people who are being interviewed to make sure that the bigger picture is out there. Otherwise, we're never going to change these things if we keep talking about the small things. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.
All Premier League matches taking place over the coming week will be dedicated to no room for racism, as the league and clubs continue to urge fans to challenge and report discriminatory behaviour wherever they see it. The league's released a video to reinforce the message there is no place for racist abuse and that fans can play a key role in the fight against discrimination. Ex-footballer John Barnes is with us. Hello to you, John. A thought on that to start with. Is the league doing enough?
Well, of course, they're doing a lot to highlight the problem in racism, taking a knee. Doing what they're doing this weekend is a fantastic way, because it's so media attentive and it gets to the imagination of the public, to highlight the problems in racism. It does nothing to cure them, but it does it to highlight them. So, of course, I like them once now to then actually move on from, highlighting just taking the or what they're actually doing this weekend.
To that end, you've actually written a book, haven't you, recently, The Uncomfortable Truth About Racism. Tell us about it.
But it's not to the end of to that end in terms of sport or football. It's about life. I know some people may think it'll cause controversy, because it's really about, in my opinion, the way to come to the solution for racial inequality. It's not just about race. It's also intersectional and about gender. It's also about homosexuality. And what we have to do is we have to do it from a bottom down approach, because we are quite happy to look at the elite, the footballers and the actors and the singers and female prime ministers and women in the high echelons of society, and elevate them out of that negative space where society generally sees women, black people, gay people, and feel that we're doing something because we have more representation up above. But that's not going to change. What we have to do is we have to start down below and change what's happening down from a black perspective in the inner cities, in terms of what's going on with knife crime, what's going on with inequality in jobs and education, and change our perception of the average black person, or the average woman, or the average gay person. Not elevate the brilliant ones in that group into these positions of power, and to give the illusion that we're doing something because we have more representation up at the top.
You, of course, John, many of us older viewers will remember the abhorrent racial abuse that you had to deal with when you were playing football. Do you feel that that all of us as a society have made real progression since then?
Well, the proof is not whether a banana comes on the field. The proof is whether we're having more opportunities in the cities for our kids, and whether we're being given more opportunities to access to social care and jobs and housing, and whether the average woman. So we can give the illusion, because of course we don't hear it anymore on the stereotypes like we used to. But that doesn't mean, if you look at what's going on generally speaking, that racism is getting any better. So overt racism in football isn't what it was back then, but that doesn't mean that racism generally for the majority of people, or sexism or homophobia, is any different. And football can do nothing about that. Football can only pass laws to govern its own house. That's not going to change people's perceptions. So what we have to do is change people's perceptions about what they consider to be people less than them, be they black, be they gay, be they female, or other dynamics.
Do you think the United Kingdom is racist as a nation?
Not more so than anywhere else. But I believe that we are, and never mind as a nation. Martin Luther King said that in 1963, that a shallow understanding of racial bias is much more detrimental than the total and absolute understanding by bad people. The shallow understanding by good people is worse than the total misunderstanding by bad people. What he means is that we believe that as long as we don't throw a banana on the field, and the ones who do are racist, if we don't rape a woman, as long as we're not sexist. The majority of us would never do that, because we have a shallow understanding of what racism and sexism is. And we believe it's a binary either or. Most of us are sexist, racist, homophobic, to a certain degree, certain or lesser degree. But we believe as long as we don't overtly do something, we are not. And most of us are somewhere in between that. And until we accept it within ourselves and understand why we are, because of how we have been conditioned to think for hundreds of years in terms of racial hierarchy, gender hierarchy, all of us, nothing will change. We wait for the ones who get caught, and it will come down hard on them and think that's the solution to the problem. But we have to look at ourselves.
Okay, so once we accept that, what do we do about it?
We accept it, so then what we do is say, why do we think the way we do? And then we understand that this is how we've been conditioned to think.
Oh, I think we've lost John.
This is how we've been conditioned to think. Give me one
John,
second,
we thought
sorry.
we lost you, but you're back.
No,
sorry, you were just making your point. Do forgive me.
Yeah, sorry. And because this is how we have been conditioned to think for hundreds of years. And we believe that a simple solution is to pass laws. It's been illegal to rape and kill, but people still do it. We have to stop up. Yes, we have to pass laws to control that. That's what we can do. But we have to change perceptions. And where do those perceptions come from? In the last 300-400 years, there's been a group of people who have been superior to other groups of people because we have been lied about by their character, their worth, be they Irish, be they black, be they women, because this is what we have done in the last 400 years, and we have to deconstruct that. And it's not as simple as saying, everything you've learned and been conditioned is wrong. Why? Because we're all the same. And we're trying to do it in a very quick, simplistic way. A lot of it has to do with elites and non-elites as well, because of course a lot of black people and women will be allowed to become elites and not be exploited, not be discriminated against, while the group we belong to still will be, and we kid ourselves that because we have a black president and a female prime minister, it doesn't exist. Conditioning has made us feel the way we do, and we have to deconstruct what we have been conditioned to think, which is a very long process and a very complex process, but we're trying to simplify by just saying it's illegal to do it, so don't do it.
John Barnes, his new book, The Uncomfortable Truth About Racism, out now. John, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.